Hello, Bruins. Welcome to the final session of Choreograph Your Life, a three-part leadership series led by Ms. Val. My name is Gloria Coe, and I'm a proud UCLA 2006 grad. I serve as the Senior Director of Alumni Career Engagement at UCLA Alumni Affairs, and we're thrilled to have you here with us today. The series is designed for alumni and friends of the Bruin community who want to learn from Ms. Val's professional journey. Today's session will be around the dance and how to redefine your purpose and enter a new phase. Whether it is shifting to retirement or a new industry, Ms. Val will share her philosophy and strategies for redefining yourself. This will be a great discussion and one to motivate you. After this session, I encourage you to check out resources and connect with other alumni. You can connect with other Bruins on UCLA One, our online professional community where you can search for jobs, request informational interviews, and mentor a student. You can sign up today at ucla1.com. The UCLA Alumni Association also seeks to provide relevant and helpful career programming. So be sure to check out resources and offerings at alumni.ucla.edu/careers. So on to our program. I'm happy to introduce Wendy Soderberg from the class of 1982, who will be interviewing Ms. Val tonight. She served for many years as managing editor of UCLA Magazine at UCLA's Office of Strategic Communications. We hope today's conversation will motivate and inspire you to take that next step. So thank you, Wendy, and thank you to Ms. Val for sharing your time and inspiration with us today.
Thanks, Gloria. Hi, everybody. My name is Wendy Soderberg, and I'm pleased to serve as your moderator for this final session of our three-part series. I hope you were able to join us for the first two sessions. In the first session called The Climb, Ms. Val talked about learning how to motivate yourself and how to take the first steps toward launching a new endeavor. In the second session called The Stretch, Ms. Val discussed how to give and receive feedback effectively. If you missed either session, you can find a link to videos of both sessions at alumni.ucla.edu/choreograph-your-life. You can also find Ms. Val's answers to some of your submitted questions at the link that we'll put in the chat. Here is the link, alumni.ucla.edu/choreograph-your-life-and-answers. And we'll show that again at the end. In today's session, The Dance, Ms. Val will share her insights on how to redefine your purpose and enter a new phase of life. This program is created and crafted for our alumni, so we'll be answering questions submitted prior to and during the event. And as a special surprise for our viewers, Ms. Val will hold a special Q&A salon next Tuesday for our viewers and for our participants. This will be different. You can sign up at this website or scan the QR code to take you to RSVP for the salon. This will be different from our webinars in that you will be able to interact with Ms. Val directly. There is a 300-person maximum for this event, so be sure to sign up soon. I'll repeat this information at the end of today's session as well. Now it's time to introduce our speaker. You all know Ms. Val as the former head coach of UCLA's women's gymnastics team, among many other accomplishments. In the spring of 2014, Ms. Val was diagnosed with breast cancer. Fortunately, she caught it early, and the type of cancer she had, stage 1 HER2 positive, was highly treatable. Throughout a grueling year of chemotherapy, a double mastectomy, and 4 surgeries, Ms. Val maintained her usual positive attitude, calling it her midlife awakening. From that moment on, she was determined to live each moment of each day as fully as she possibly could. And today she'll share what she has learned along the way. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Valerie Condos Field. Hi, Val. How are you?
Well, thank you. How are all the Bruins?
Yay, Bruins. Hope you're all doing good.
Yeah. Hopefully everybody's cool.
Oh, God. Yeah, really. Okay, well, let's start our interview, shall we?
Great.
Okay. The first question we have for you is, why is redefining yourself and finding your purpose considered a dance?
I love that question. Because when you redefine your purpose, a dance is something that is not linear.
Mm.
And so a dance, like when you think about any type of a dance, it moves forward, it moves backwards, it's circular. Even if you're doing a line dance, you're moving in different directions. It's not just straightforward. That is called a march. And when you're finding your purpose, it's not about doing what you should do or what you were raised to do.
Mm.
That, to me, feels like a march.
Okay.
And so when you find your purpose, it's something that inspires you. When you find your purpose, it's not a job. It feels you from the inside out, and it definitely is not linear. It's fluid. It's a dance. Sometimes it's staccato. Sometimes it's a two-step. Sometimes it's a waltz. Sometimes it's a whatever you want to call it. But it's a dance.
I see. Great answer. Now, in your book, you talk in detail about the impacts of your cancer diagnosis on your retirement. For the audience, how did the diagnosis launch you into your next phase?
Two key things happened, and I'm sure that many of you can relate to this because whether you've had it happen to you personally or with a family member or close friend, it's horrifying when you get told that you have cancer or a loved one has cancer. And I go about this in greater detail in my book or some other interviews that I've had if you want to look it up. But when I got the call from my doctor and she said that you have a very aggressive form of breast cancer. I said, as many of you can relate to, my mind went into chaos, mental chaos. And in that chaos, I heard very, very clearly, be anxious for nothing and grateful for all things. And I thought this was weird because how am I not supposed to be anxious? I just got diagnosed with a potentially fatal disease. And making this story much shorter, I went to my oncologist the next day, and I will never forget when she said, had you been diagnosed a mere 10 years ago, you had absolutely nothing for you. And you choose to get chemotherapy for a year and surgery, we know it's going to work. And in that moment, I understood this commandment that I had received, be anxious for nothing and grateful for all things. The way I was not going to be anxious was through gratitude. I didn't have to get chemotherapy. I got to get chemotherapy. And I was so appreciative and grateful for this to the point where I called going to chemotherapy every other week, going to my chemo spa, because a spa is someplace you go to get better. So switching that one word, have to get to, has literally transformed every moment of my life since then. Just apply it to everything you do. I don't have to go to work. I get to go to work because I have a job. I don't have to stay quarantined. I get to stay quarantined because I have a house, and on and on and on. And the second thing that really hit me was that I knew that I wasn't going to die from this bout of breast cancer. But what hit me was none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. I still didn't know something that might happen tragically, before I plan out my life to live to 103 years old. Mm-hmm. And I realized that time is the only resource that is not renewable that we have in our lives. And so from that moment, it wasn't like I made this commitment to myself. It was this inner knowledge and wisdom that I was not going to waste one day of my very precious life, regardless of how many days I have left.
What a great attitude, Val. Typical Val. Okay, what is the difference between loving your job and being inspired by your job?
Oh, that's great. And I thought about this when people were asking me why I was retiring, because I was retiring at literally the height of my career. Mm-hmm. We had just won a championship 2018. Everything was rolling so well. Why was I going to leave this job that I loved? And I truly loved every single day of my job. And when I got asked that question enough, I started thinking, really, why am I leaving this job that I love so much? And the answer was I was no longer inspired by the work. And the difference for me is that when I think of loving my job, I found value in my work. I found value in the challenge of getting 1% better every day. And I found value in the fact that I could love my job even when the job didn't give back to me maybe that day, even maybe when things were hard, when it was the struggle,
Right.
but I still loved it. And when I think of being inspired, I find myself when I'm inspired by things, I'm consumed with this new thing that I want to do. I'm consumed with every aspect of it. And in that inspiration, the creativity kicks in and the innovation kicks in. And there's this continuous like fire that doesn't need to be fed. It's just in you naturally. That's what I was missing the last few years of my work at UCLA as the head coach. And that is what I'm excited to do now. And that's what I'm feeling every day with all of these projects, including this webinar.
I think it's a lucky thing too when you can that you could leave a job that you still love in order to go on to something that, as you say, does light the fire under you, which is exactly what you've done. So anyway, okay. Let's talk about some of the fears that people may encounter when they're trying to do something new.
Okay. First of all, you all know, I think we've talked about this before, that I don't believe in the word failure. So fear of failure is not going to be part of this because I don't believe in that word. But when I think about fears, I think we all have different fears. And the ones that I think are the most common are the ones that we've put up on this slide: fear of the unknown, fear of finances, especially right now, fear of failing, like we talked about. But I think there are other fears that have come to mind since we talked about this slide, and that's fear of not being smart enough, fear of not being creative enough, fear of not being sharp enough. And I was telling Wendy of this story that happened. It was a week after I was done at UCLA. I was on a flight, and the woman next to me says, "What do you do?" And I said, "Wow, if you would have asked me a week ago, I would have said I'm the head coach for the UCLA gymnastics team. And I guess right now, I'm just me." And she says, "Honey, drop the just. Me's enough." And ever since she said that, I was like, yeah, I'm like wearing that as my badge of honor. Being me is enough. And on to a few other fears that I've been thinking about. Fear of not being able to be yourself at work fully. Fear of abuse. And then one that I really think is very pertinent is the last one on the slide, is fear of other people's opinions. And that can be stifling. And I keep asking myself, what would I do? Is there anything that I would be doing in life if I really didn't worry about what other people would think of me or say about me? And it's something that I know I struggle with, and I live life large, so I can imagine a lot of people do struggle with that. And I just feel it's an effort to realize that we don't have to be anything more than we are. Everything we need is already in us. We already have it.
If you didn't have that fear of what other people thought about you, what would you do?
I would forge a career on the Broadway stage at 61 years old.
I can see you doing that.
Challenge accepted.
And you'd be a success too. We all know that. Okay. Here's another question. How do people shift from expecting one peak versus multiple peaks?
Oh, okay. So I put a lot of thought into this, and because I was thinking about the multiple peaks, and I was actually had a wonderful conversation with another favorite Bruin of all of ours, that is Coach Sue Enquist. I just had a conversation with her this morning about it. And the problem, like, I couldn't wrap my head around this question because I don't believe in peaks. And she said the exact same thing. And so I thought, okay, well, what other metaphor can I use to describe what I feel about life. And it's not going to be any surprise to you. I look at life as a symphony, and each of us have our own life symphony. And so most symphonies of life start off with maybe one instrument, and then they add, and they maybe modulate to another key, and they crescendo, and then they come down, and they're loud, and then they get soft. And a great symphony doesn't just hit a peak and then drop off and then hit another peak. It's this mix of all sorts of cacophonies of sounds and rhythms. And when you think about someone's life symphony, we all have different endings as well. Some of us end with a bang. Some of us go back to one instrument. So that really resonates with me. So that way I'm not on this trajectory right now. Oh, I have to hit another peak because, oh, I had this great career. Now I have to hit another peak that's equally as high. I don't. I just have to keep crafting my symphony.
I love that. Crafting your symphony. Okay. And as long as it doesn't have to be too complicated, a symphony. The one we just showed was kind of complicated looking, but it doesn't have to be.
No, it can be anything you want. That's like I said, it can be one instrument, it can be one note. You know, there are times in my life recently that my symphony right now is just a very single one note symphony, a very simple tune that repeats.
Sounds great. Okay. So how should those looking to move into a new phase start the process?
Okay. Here I'm going to go all Miss Val on you guys.
Good.
I'm going to share with you what I told most senior classes, I think since, the last 20 years. It's really hard for gymnasts to finish their careers because their career, most of them, I think all of like a handful of gymnasts, their gymnastics career ends when they graduate college.
Right.
Because there is no professional career for them, gymnastics career for them to go on to, unless they go into Cirque du Soleil or something like that. But there's no competitive athletic career. So they're done. And it's really jarring. And I noticed with my seniors, I had to start helping them through this process and not wait. Our national championships is over in April, not wait till the end and after it to talk with them about this. So I would have a one-on-one meeting with each of my seniors, and I would explain to them, first of all, you weren't born a gymnast. You were born blessed with a strong mind and a strong body, and you're athletic. You could have chosen any sport to do or not. And as I'm speaking with all of you now, insert your profession. You weren't born that. You're born with certain traits that have allowed you to be successful, to be hired in this position that you're hired in. And so I felt that as for me, when I started talking with our seniors about it, it was very freeing to me because I look at all the qualities that I had that made me a successful coach. And I could take those same qualities into so many other professions and jobs. And I do have to share with you, probably 20 years ago or so, I was reading in Time magazine. I wish I had the magazine. I wish I knew the man's name. But he'd had 4 careers. He started off as an attorney. And then while he was an attorney, he started going to med school. And then he became a doctor. And then he became an architect. And I can't remember what the 4th one was. But what I got out of that was you don't have to wait for one job to conclude to start looking at what that next part of your symphony will be. And it's not being disloyal if you start looking for that next thing. That's what you should do. You shouldn't wait for one thing to end to start something else. And I do have to share with you that the student athletes that we had that really embraced this and started the last few months of their senior careers, athletic careers, delving into the next thing that they were doing. So as soon as nationals were done, they knew that next week that they could go start into this internship or whatever they're going to do. they're the ones that competed the best
Mm.
last meet because they had something to look forward to.
Wow. So that really worked for the seniors then.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And it could work for us too. Okay. As a follow-up to your strategy with your gymnasts, we have this next question from Kim Guerrero, class of 1989. And Kim says, when offered several viable options, how do you make the crucial decision about which ones to devote your time and energy to? And then we got a similar question from Megan Jelinek, class of 2015. She said, how do you determine the next step? How do you narrow it down?
First of all, congratulations that you have options. I love having options in life.
Right.
Usually, there's not the right option. There are options that are better, maybe, suited for you at this time in your life. But if I were looking at other job options right now, I would look at the company values. I would look at their mission statements. I would look at the quality people that I would be working with. I would look at what the company measures as success. How do they measure success? And I would look at the company and what I would be doing for them is serving a greater good. And so this really resonated with me because when I retired, I had a lot of gymnastics clubs ask me to come on board, either as a consultant or on their advisory board. And this one club out of Brooklyn, New York, it was a new gymnastics club. It's called Gotham. And they asked me to be on their advisory board. I said, great, I'd love to. Who else is on the advisory board? And they said, we don't have anybody yet. So, okay. But especially in the world of athletics, you know, if I was asked, so I went back there and I was meeting with the board members, and every board member had a daughter or 2 or 3 in this gymnastics club. And usually when you ask coaches or board members, owners, or parents, what is your determination of success? How will you define success for your child in this club? They will say, usually they'll say, when she gets a D1 scholarship, when she makes the U.S. national team, and it's all about awards and the end result of things. And when I went around to this to the board members the owners of the club, and I just said, before I even contemplate being a board member, I need to know how each of you is going to define success. And one by one, they said, when my daughter comes home happy. The other one said, when I can see that my daughter is growing and continuing to grow into a better human being through being in this club. And it was things like that they said. And I just said, I'm in. Great. Because not one of them mentioned winning or medals or a D1 scholarship.
Right. Wow. It's nice to know that there are parents out there that are into that for their kids, not just the winning. So, okay, we've got a few practical application questions for you. We received many questions regarding retirement and shifting gears later in a career. So here are some quick fire questions within this topic. Okay, the first one is from Ruben Vasolo. Ruben, I hope I'm saying your last name right. Class of 1983, and Ruben asks, with respect to Life is Short, Don't Wait to Dance, which is Miss Val's book, please describe the writing, editing, publishing, and speaking experience.
Ruben, it's horrible. It's daunting. Thankfully I had a publisher, and when I was ready to say, I'm done, I am so over myself. I cannot listen to myself or put something else down on paper, one more page. The publisher told me every single author feels that way, and every author feels halfway through the book that they're done. They don't want to continue with it. But I believe that if I was queen of the universe, I would instruct and mandate that everybody needs to write a book. Everybody has a story. And when you start writing it. And the one thing that people will say who are writers, don't worry about what you say. Don't try to make sense of it. Just literally word vomit on the pages, and just this running stream of consciousness from your mind through the computer screen or handwritten, whatever you want to do. So don't try to make sense of it as you're putting it out there. Whatever comes to your mind, make sure you jot it down, and then you can make sense of it. Second of all, make sure that you have a few people that you can trust, that know you and your voice, to ask them to read it and to give you hard, constructive feedback. And then realize that you're going to be massaging this manuscript many, many, many times. I'm sure there may be writers out there that can just, they're so prolific, they can just write it once and it's fine. Mm-hmm. But that certainly was not my experience at all. It was daunting. You have to develop a discipline of writing, and you have to sit down every single day and write at least 2,000 words a day. Otherwise, you'll never get through it. You'll never finish it. And just be prepared for a huge challenge, but I think it's an important challenge that every single person should take, because when you start reflecting on your life and you start assessing your life, you literally start making better choices once you do that.
When you decided to write your book, was that your idea to write it, or somebody approach you and say, hey, we think that you should write this book?
A lot of people approached me because I started speaking. And so at every end of every speaking engagement, they said, where can I buy your book? And I literally felt that if I was writing a book, it would be so arrogant of me to think that I had something to say that people would want to read. Because, as we all know by now, I'm a voracious reader, and anything that is truthful has been written since the dawn of man. I had nothing new to say. And finally, my girlfriend said to me, she's the same one that challenged me to do a cartwheel when I was 58 years old. She said to me, you're right. If it's truthful, it has been passed down since the dawn of man. But all of us need people in our generations to put it in our vernacular so it can make sense to us. That's why you need to write your book. So, this is a fun story too. So I said, okay, fine, I'll write the book. And I really didn't care if anybody bought it. I really did not care. So I start writing a book, and halfway through the book, I tell my co-author, I said, I can't publish this book. And he said, why? And now, mind you, it's kind of about how did a dancer choreographer end up becoming this head coach that won all these championships. And as we all know, I have some pretty unorthodox ways of doing things. And I told my co-author, his name's Coop, I said, Coop, if I publish this book and people read it, they are going to think I am a total whack job. And Coop seriously says, no, you are a whack job. That's why you have to write the book, because you give us all permission to be our inner whack jobs. And I was like, okay, I'll write the book.
And we're so glad you did, because it's such a great book. And how long did it take you to write it?
About 2 years. About 2 years.
From the very beginning when you first started writing it to when it was published, or?
Yes. Okay. Yes. And it was great. I'm glad that I did have a co-author, because he played football and wrestled growing up. And there were so many things that I wouldn't even have thought to put in the book, like why I don't have team captains. I was like, why is that interesting to anybody? So there were a lot of chapters in the book that I would not have put in, because to me, it's just common knowledge.
Right. Okay. But it wasn't common knowledge. So people want to know. Okay. We have a question from Kathleen Jackson, who is a PhD grad of 1977. And Kathleen says, how do you bolster creativity with age?
Okay. Great question. Because I believe that we need to tap into our creativity and we need to fuel it to the day we die. So first of all, I absolutely believe in the power of reading. I feel that reading lots of different types of things too, not just romance novels. But they're great. They have their place. But I feel that reading bolsters curiosity. And I feel that when you're a voracious reader, it enhances your conversations with people. And I feel that through reading, through conversations, it keeps this creativity going. And through that, you actually find new possibilities for yourself that you may not have found if you weren't seeking them through the written word. And I just figured that one little thing, honestly, read the newspaper, read leadership books, read spiritual books, read romance novels, and talk about it with people. And that one thing will ignite that creativity inside of you.
Very nice. This next question is from Astrid Hansen. Astrid says, how do we deal with the ageism that we experience as we explore new fields?
Astrid, I really respect this question so much. And I have to be honest, I don't feel that I am qualified to answer it because I don't feel that I have experienced that yet. But I have experienced people thinking that I didn't know what the heck I was doing as a coach. And literally, you have to become Teflon. You have to let other people's opinions of you, FOPO, you have to let fear of other people's opinions, you have to let those opinions slide right off of you. Unless it is something of value to help you become a better version of yourself, simply become Teflon. Because think about it, just like most things in the world, everybody has their different description of what age looks like. I mean, when I was growing up, 60 was old. Mm-hmm. Now, I literally, seriously, I was down at Coach Enquist's house these last few days. Her neighbor's 97 years old. I woke up this morning to him with this massive hedge trimmer, the hedges. Like, talk about ageism. I'm sitting there going, you shouldn't be doing that, Tony. And he's like, why not? I'm fine. So nobody should be able to tell you how to feel, how to act. If you're really being the best version of yourself, don't worry about it. Become Teflon and let it be their problem, not yours.
I take that to heart myself. So thank you, Val. Okay. This next question is for those who find themselves in a situation that they didn't expect. So from Victoria DeLuna, class of 2017, Victoria asks, what advice would you give to someone who has started a career in a field that they never intended to stay in? Interesting question.
I love that question because, hello, you're looking at her. Hello. I never intended to be a coach. And when Dr. Judy Holland asked me to be the coach, I'm so embarrassed to say this, but it's true. I think I've mentioned this before, but it's not very flattering to me. Dr. Holland asked me to be the head coach. A part of my brain went, oh gosh, no, I don't like sweatpants and tennis shoes. I like party dresses and high heels. I am not living in the workout clothes that coaches have. That was like one of the first things I thought of. So I did not seek out to be a coach. But like I said earlier, there were obviously certain things that Dr. Holland saw in me that she felt I would be successful at this job. And I was. And so whatever you have right now that you feel that you weren't like specifically looking for this field, pat yourself on the back and give yourself an attagirl or an attaboy the fact that you have got things of value that people feel are of enough value to hire you. That is super cool. Mm-hmm. And then as long as you're learning something along the way, that is super cool. because to continue learning continues that whole creative process that we just talked about, and hopefully keeps you inspired to want to go into work the next day to learn more, and then realize it's not the end all be all. It's part of your symphony.
That's lovely. I like how we went back to the symphony again. I love that. Okay. Okay, here's a practical application question from Coriel Bogan. Coriel, I hope I said your name right. Class of 2015. And Coriel asks, how do you stay organized and balance all of your commitments? We all need to know that one.
Now, anybody that knows me is shaking their heads right now, because the thing that I struggle the most with is being organized. And I'll share another little story with you. So I hired a leadership coach to work with me personally back in 2009. Mm-hmm. And then he was so good. His name's Foster Mobley. And then I hired him to work with our coaching staff and then our student athletes. But every summer we would get together with Foster and our coaching staff, me, Chris, Randy, Jordan. And one of the questions that Foster would ask each of us is, what do you need to work on? What do you need to work on this next year to help you be more efficient at your job? And I would think about it like every year. I'd go, you know what? I need to work on being more organized. And the last few years, Chris or Randy or Foster would look at me and just go, oh, and how's that going, Val? I never grasped it. And so my answer to you is, it's very personal. It's very individual. When I tell people I need to work on being organized, they go, just put it in your phone. That has never worked for me, ever. I have to write things down. If you saw my calendar right now, it's like, okay, it's like, and I've learned to write in pencil so that I can erase. But you have to find the science to your own organization. And so mine is, as soon as I hear it, write it down. I carry my calendar everywhere with me and I write it down. And then I will, at night, I will take a sticky and I will go through my calendar and my emails again, and I will write 8 a.m., 9 a.m., and I will write it out again. So it's in my calendar and it's here. And then I make a habit of like, this is so silly, but like if I flag an email, I won't look at it. I don't ever look at that whole thing. But I have learned, instead of to flag it, I mark it as unread. So it will come back up. So those things work for me. And then the final bit of advice I can give is learn to sincerely apologize. And I've had to do that a lot. And you know what? I'm going to bring up Coach Enquist again, because Susie is one of the most organized people I've ever met. And she's got it on her calendar and her phone, and she writes notes and this and that. And I was just with her today, and she goes, oh, shoot. Oh, my gosh. I didn't even realize I have a 1 o'clock Zoom, and I was going to leave our house at 2 o'clock. She goes, no, I have a 1 o'clock. I was like, okay, I'm out of here. I'm gone. Love you. So even someone that organized.
Right.
Does that every once in a while.
I laugh because I'm totally understanding what you're talking about, because I also don't use, like calendars on my phone. I have to write it down in a physical book. I've done that, my whole working career, I've done that as well. So I totally know what you're talking about.
But we are in good company, because if you ever saw Coach Wooden's calendar, it was.
Oh, I don't think I ever did.
It was jam-packed every day. And I figured, you know what? If he got through 99 years and 9 months, handwriting it out, I can get her through the same.
And did he keep his own calendar? He did, right? Wow. That's so amazing. Val, we were talking about, before we jumped online, there were a couple of books that you were suggesting that people read, or, advising us to read, that were very helpful to you. So maybe you could tell us, what those books are.
Okay. So how many of you are up for some homework? Since I can't see you, I am going to imagine that you all went, ooh, me. Okay, that's feel better. So I'm giving you some homework if you'd like. I had our student athletes do this and our coaching staff. And it was so illuminating. And anyway, it's from this book. It's the Success Principles. See that? You can see that, right? And on page 33, as I'm reading this book, he says, one of the ways to really find what your passions are, what your purpose is, what you want to do in life, is the first thing to do is write down 30 things that you want to have before you die. And he goes on to explain that the reason why it's important to write down 30 and not just 5 is because, and I did this exercise. Like, I stopped reading when I was reading this book to do the exercise. And it's true. And he says it in here. When you start out, at first, you're going to realize that everything you write down is material. What you want, I want this big of a house. I want this type of a car. I want to live in this zip code. And once you exhaust all those, then you get real with yourself. And then you start, the inner you really starts coming out. I want to be able to express myself fully in my work. I want to make a difference in people's lives. I want to be inspired. And that was beyond illuminating. Well, the next paragraph says, write down 20 things that you love to do. Mm. And so again, the more you write down, the more you really realize that the things that you thought that really made your heart sing, you don't really realize those things till you're down to like 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay. And when I gave this exercise to our team one year in our coaching staff, I had a friend in from out of town, and she had spent 20 years in politics. And so she does the exercise, and she writes down, the 30 things that she wants, and then she writes down the 30 things that she loves. And when we got done, she literally was kind of like deer in the headlights, stuck. And I was like, why? What's going on? And she said, I've spent 20 years in politics, and not one thing that I've written down that I want or that I love has to do with politics. Mm-hmm. And she quit her job. And
wow.
She's happier than she's ever been. And she's listening right now. So
yeah. It's hard to come up with 20 things that you want in life and then 20 things that you love.
It's not.
It's not that hard?
No, it's not. Because when you start thinking about what you want, I want my family to be healthy. I want my husband to live a full life. I want him to be able to golf as long as he can. And I just think your mind shifts to the things that you're grateful for now that you would like to keep having. It's a really cool exercise. It strips, what I found was, and this is what the book says also, it strips away the things that society tells you will make you happy and fulfilled. Mm. So when you get down to those, when you get down to the end of your list is really when you get raw and real, and it's not about what society says. I do have to say that author Jack Canfield, he's the co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Okay.
Oh, okay. And then next, this is my gift to all of you. So the first gift the coach would never gave me was this book. It is called The Majesty of Calmness, Individual Problems and Possibilities. And it was first copywritten, whatever the correct conjugation is, 1898. And you can get this on Amazon. I buy them in bulk. I buy like 20 of them at a time because I give them as gifts. And it's so cool because John Wooden's ethos is on every single page. And so, for example, we all know that Coach Wooden used to say all the time, be quick, but don't hurry. Well, in this book, The Majesty of Calmness, it says, hurry is the enemy to calm. Mm. I'm like, that's where Coach Wooden got so much of his wisdom. So
we'll rush right out and get that book, Val. Something else we talked about when you talked about your exercise, having everybody write down the 20 things they want and the 20 things that they love. We thought it'd be kind of fun if those of you who want to participate in that and write down the things that you like and you love, to send it to us. And we would just like to see what people have to say. And you could send it to us at this website, careerprograms@alumni.ucla.edu. So again, that's careerprograms@alumni.ucla.edu. And we would love to hear what you guys have to say about that.
And you know what? I would, because we're doing the salon next week, I would love to hear your response to what you know about this exercise, because everybody, including myself, has the exact same reaction. Really, 20 things I want and 20 things that I love. Yeah, it's too many. I don't need that many. But everybody has the same initial response. And then I find that most people have the same response at the end. So I would love some feedback on that.
Okay, so everybody send in your lists to that email address that I just gave you. And next week at our salon, maybe we could talk about it.
Okay, so Ren Hanami, good job, good catch. She says, is it 30 or 20? So in the book, he says 30, write down 30 things that you want and 20 things you love. I don't know what the magic is for those numbers, but.
Okay. Ooh, 30, that's even harder.
Yeah.
Good catch, Ren. Okay, we do have, there's a couple of questions that are in the chat. So Val, if you have time to answer them, we'll go to them. Okay, here's the first one.
Okay, I'm gonna fan myself because it is so hot in here.
Oh, I know.
So, here we go.
Okay, take your time, fan away. Here's the first question. When it comes to considering new opportunities, how can you tell if it's fear that's holding you back, or disinterest, or that it is not the right thing?
That's a great question.
That is a good question.
And I would kind of answer it how I answered the previous ones. I feel like with fear, we all are holding on to so much fear these days. Fear of not being enough, like I said before, fear of other people's opinions. And I think, like, one of the gifts of these last 5 months has really been the gift of solitude and time. And to be able to spend time to really think what is important to me. And so for you to be able to, and write it down so that you can read it and hear your thoughts, and write down, okay, I want to go apply for this job, but I am fearful of not knowing what I'm talking about. I'm fearful of. And then you start analyzing all of that and realizing that, first of all, there's not a human being on the planet that can check off all the boxes for whatever job you want. There's not a human on the planet. So honor and respect the things that you do bring to the table. And even if it is only effort and attitude. There's a reason why Coach Wooden, Coach Wooden, the cornerstones of his pyramid are industriousness and enthusiasm, effort and attitude. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why. Because when you get in a situation that you don't understand and don't know everything that goes into what we call the X's and O's, as long as you bring effort and attitude, industriousness and enthusiasm to anything you're doing, you will learn, you will be curious, you will make friends and confidants and all of that in the workspace, and you will succeed at whatever job you want. You absolutely will, simply by bringing effort and attitude.
That it's sort of related to another question that we got in the Q&A. Okay, this one says, how do you work past the fear? You just talked about fear of taking a leap and changing the trajectory of your life with a new career or moving to a completely new city.
I'm doing that. Okay.
That's true.
Here. And I haven't said this publicly yet. So y'all, my Bruin family, did you catch a little bit? I said y'all. Yeah. My husband graduated from the University of Arkansas. And when I retired, he was like, let's start a new adventure. And so I said, okay. And so we started looking at all these other cities to move to. And he said, if I had my way, he said, I'd love to move back to Fayetteville. And so we went back there a few times. My coach, Jordan Weber, is the new head coach of gymnastics out there. Oh. So we were out there quite a bit last year, and it's absolutely darling and charming. Okay, I'm 61. I've never lived out of California. I'm moving out for the first time. There have been many nights I've woken up petrified. What the heck am I doing? And I have to be honest with you. You know how we talk about the power of your mind and your thoughts? Mm-hmm. When I think about it as an adventure, that's when I get excited.
Right.
And so let's go back to the symphony. This part of the next, literally, if I could show you my room right now, it's just got boxes. I mean, like, we are moving next week. And the symphony, like when I look at this next few months, okay, so the last 5 years of my career, my symphony have been like this, right? And now my symphony is like here, and now this symphony is going to be going like this. Mm. And it's an adventure. And I'll never forget years and years and years and years and years ago in a book I was reading, Helen Keller said, life is nothing but a grand adventure.
Wow, Val. And thank you for telling us. We didn't know that you were going to be moving to Fayetteville. So when is that going to happen?
That's going to happen. We're going to go up north for 2 months, and then we're going to beat the heat, and then we're going to go out there in, I don't know, let's say November. I'm just going rolling with the problem. So.
It's hard to say right now when anything is possible, but wow. Well, we're going to miss you here. That's for sure.
Thank you. Well, we're Zooming like people.
That's true.
I don't even know where I am, so it's fine.
Okay. Well, let's see if we have, we've got just a couple of minutes. Maybe we could squeeze in another Q&A question from the chat. Elon Kramer says, how do you know when it's time to leave? And how do you know if you're no longer inspired by the work when it's such a bizarre reality that we're living in?
Oh, right. Right. I feel that even though we're living in a bizarro world right now, I don't want to wait for COVID to be over to start living my life and crafting my symphony.
Right.
So many people feel that you only take chances and you only start choreographing your life when things are going well. It's like when I went through the year of cancer, I had so many people saying to me, why don't you just put that off till you're done with chemo? Or what? I'm like, why would I do that? I feel fine. I don't need to do that. And so not only are none of us guaranteed tomorrow, none of us are guaranteed what our world is going to be like. And if you try to start to figure it out, you can't even, what is our world going to be like the next 3 months through this election? But I'm not going to put my life on hold. I'm not going to sit in LA and put my life on hold to figure out what's happening and who the next president's going to be and what that's going to do to society to decide when I'm going to move and where I'm going to move. I'm going to craft my symphony. And as long as I'm staying true to me and being inspired every day, and as long as I'm in a position where I can be helping make the world a better place every day, just that much, then I'm living a good life.
Wow. You're taking that step. You're taking that leap, Val. Good for you. Okay, we have, I think we have time for one more question from the Q&A in the chat. Okay, let's see. Is it okay? Okay. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Sushmitha Shivakumar is asking, is it okay to be intimidated by other people who are progressing faster than you are?
No. No. Because that gets to comparison. And comparison is the thief of joy. So no, ever.
Okay.
You can learn from them. Everything that we know, we've learned from someone else.
Right.
So we can learn maybe what to do, what not to do. But to compare yourself is pretending like you were both born with the same DNA. And you know that that's not true. Even if you have a twin, it's not true.
Right.
So never compare yourself to another. You can use others as examples, like I said, of what to do, what not to do. Honestly, and this is crazy for me to share this as well, but this is like Miss Val sharing night tonight. When I started putting so many things on my plate after cancer, and I wrote my book, and I want to produce an Urban Nutcracker, and I want to do all these things, but I'm also coaching I'm the head coach for the UCLA Gymnastics team, which is like a full-time job, and all these things. And I had people say to me, you're really doing too much. And I was like, well, my work isn't suffering at UCLA. It's actually improving because I'm so inspired by everything I'm doing. And then I looked at people that I feel whose plates are more full than mine. And one of them was Jennifer Lopez. And I was like, nobody's telling J-Lo she's got too much on her plate. Got people to help her do her stuff. And so I look at someone like that, Jennifer Lopez, and I look at how does she manage it? How does she manage all that? Well, one of the things that I've learned from her is she manages her diet extremely well. She doesn't drink alcohol because that gets in the way. She makes exercise a priority because we all know how it fuels us with so much good. And I feel that's not comparison. That's learning from someone else.
Very good. Sushmetha, I think you got the answer to your question there. Definitely no, it's not okay.
Sushmetha, what a beautiful name.
I know.
Honestly, who said it? Was it Winston Churchill? Somebody said, comparison is the thief of joy. So meditate on that for a while. And it really, really is true.
Okay, well, I think that wraps up our session, Val. This is our final session of the Choreograph Your Life series. So, Ms. Val, thank you for sharing your story and your strategies with us. It's been such a treat to have these important conversations with Ms. Val, and we hope that this program has inspired you to choreograph your life.